Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 14 and compare it against the iPhone 5S and see which one is the better one for you. I mean, I'm assuming you already know which one is the better one. The iPhone 5S is clearly the better one here. Now, if you want to pick up either one of these phones, the links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, what's very interesting is the iPhone 5S came out in 2013, and this one has been unsupported for a few years now, but this was the flagship of this time. I don't know why this is going, there we go. This was the flagship of that time in 2013. Now the iPhone 14 isn't even the flagship anymore, that is for the 14 Pros. But to see how big of a change we've gotten in iPhones just in general is actually pretty insane. But there's a lot more similarity here than you probably even believe. So in the front of the iPhone 5S, we had a pretty decent 4-inch display. Now, back then, this was a good size. This wasn't small. This wasn't big. This was like pretty much a good size that a lot of people liked. It came with flat sides, which is cool. It had a pretty good display at that time as well. I think they called it still the Retina display, which is nice. You have Touch ID on the front. You have pretty decent build quality. I mean, the build quality of this phone feels very premium, and because of the flat sides, it somewhat modernized this phone a little bit more because of how the flat sides came with the iPhone 12s. So because of that, that is actually a really big deal in my opinion. So although this phone may not look like the most modern phone of all time, I'm sure a lot of people still appreciate this phone, especially because of the size and the lightweight nature of it. Now with the iPhone 14, this phone is obviously a much bigger phone. It has a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display, and this is overall a really good panel. This is probably one of the best panels Apple's made. I'll probably say that for the 14 Pro and Pro Max, but this is still a really solid panel, 60 Hz on both. But I like this phone, and I like this display a lot, and I definitely do think it looks a lot better than the iPhone 5S. But like I said, because of the flat sides, it gives the impression that they are way more similar than you would probably even think. Now the power buttons and the rest of the body is very interesting as well. So if you take a look at the iPhone 14, the side of the iPhone 14 and the side of the iPhone 5S, I kind of do miss these type of circular buttons with like the plus and minus sign. I think that was a really nice touch. This gold color as well was really, really nice. Now, if you look at the top, we actually have a power button at the top of the iPhone 5S, where the power button is on the side of the iPhone 14. And the thinness and thickness factor, they're both kind of the same. I mean, maybe the iPhone 14 is a little bit thicker, but they both kind of look like the same thing. Sorry, I'm not showing you over the camera. I keep forgetting. On the bottom, though, lightning ports on both. The iPhone 5S does have that headphone jack, which I think is nice. Speaker grills on both as well. Now on the back, very interesting setup because they are vastly different. Now, personally, I do like the iPhone 5S. I think that design looks very, very good. And I do think for an iPhone that came out, how many years ago, 9 years ago at this point, that is a very interesting design, especially that it stemmed from the iPhone 5, which kind of stemmed from the iPhone 4, but not really. This design looks really, really good even now. With the iPhone 14, I think this is pinnacle Apple. The 14 Pros look better, but the glass back with that dual camera setup look amazing. But I do miss how that camera was flush on the back of that phone. If you look at how much bigger the camera sensors are nowadays, I mean, it is crazy. You're getting a much bigger sensor on the iPhone 14 than on the iPhone 5S. So that in and of itself, again, is a pretty wild thing as well. Now, some other big things, the iPhone 14 obviously has wireless charging, IP certification, 5G, dual eSIM support. The iPhone 5S has a SIM card, which is nice, a physical SIM card, but you're definitely getting more features overall from something like an iPhone 14 than something like the iPhone 5S. So in terms of that, that kind of covers it up on the outside. Now, another big thing that we have to kind of talk about is pretty much with the software and longevity. Now, the reason why the iPhone 5S probably isn't a phone you want to buy anymore is because it is outdated. It's been outdated for many, many years now, and because of that, it just doesn't really make too much sense to go and pick up a phone like this. It makes much more sense to go and buy something like an iPhone SE2, which I probably wouldn't even recommend too much. Like an iPhone 10 would be, like the iPhone 8 would be the lowest I would recommend. So the 5S is older than the iPhone 8, so it makes no sense to buy this phone. So, that kind of covers it up there. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both. The iPhone 5S has that Apple A7 chip inside of it with 1 GB of RAM, with the iPhone 14 it has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 GB of RAM. So let's go and see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are clear in the background, and I think we all know which one's going to be the faster one, so we'll only have to do like a few apps. Phone calls, 3, 2, 1. Yep, there we go. That's quite a bit of a difference. App Store, 3, 2, 1. Now I don't know if there's going to be random pop-ups or anything that come up, so we'll just kind of deal with them as they come. And pretty fast experience on the iPhone 14. Scrolling through as well, you can see how much of a difference there is. There's been big differences for sure when it comes down to both of these. I hate that spider ad, it's so annoying. Lots of glitches as well on the iPhone 5S, but still, still working, which is nice. We can go in and get into something like some of these third-party apps. Like we're gonna get into settings, 3, 2, 1. I mean, even in an app like settings, it's like a really big difference as well, which is really insane. We can try something like Twitter, 3, 2, 1. It's definitely taking a long time on the iPhone 5S. I don't think I'm logged into an account here, and I wasn't. So, I mean, that took a much longer time than I thought. Snapchat, 3, 2, 1. And something happened, but I did get logged out, and the iPhone 5S took a much longer time. I essentially think they were in the same exact spot. Getting out of this one, Facebook, 3, 2, 1. Again, very fast on the iPhone 14, not instantaneous, but still very fast. iPhone 5S definitely took its time. Let's do Temple Run, I guess, which I don't even have here. We can get into another application like Snake vs. Blocks, 3, 2, 1. And it did crash on the iPhone 5S. Very, very interesting. Surprised the app crashed on that one. Thank you, 3, 2, 1. iOS 12 has been very stable. I guess when apps become newer and newer and get updates, it can crash and kind of break on some of the older phones, which is totally okay. But look at the speed difference here. That is absolutely insane that we're getting that fast of a phone. It's not even that fast of a phone considering it's last year's chipset, but the fact that it's this big of a difference is crazy. And again, that's going to stem to gameplay as well. I mean, look, I've been trying to move it here and kind of a glitchy experience on the iPhone 5S. So when it comes down to it, you're definitely getting a much faster experience every single way on the iPhone 14 than on the iPhone 5S for a fact. So in terms of that covers it up there. Now in the camera department, as I mentioned before, you're getting a dual camera setup on the iPhone 14, a single camera setup on the iPhone 5S. You can do, I think, 1080p video on the iPhone 5S, but I mean, it's kind of an outdated camera. It's just a single lens. The iPhone 14 wide and ultra wide camera, 4K at 60 on the front and the back as well, which is crazy. Now on the 5S, I mean, you have to remember back in 2013 when this phone came out, this was like the best camera, one of the best cameras of that year. Maybe Samsung had the best one of that year, but it's pretty insane how much we've improved since then. We have video mode, panorama mode, all this other stuff. The funny thing though is the camera UI has stayed exactly the same. I don't understand why Apple doesn't change things up. They could give us a way better experience, and I think with iOS 17, they should focus in on that camera and give us a way better camera experience. They highlight the camera all the time, but even compared to the iPhone 14, the UI is still so much the same. So yeah, features are added, but I'll definitely tell you the 5S, it's surprising that the UI is still modern, but the camera itself is very outdated. It's not really like that great of a camera anymore, and that in and of itself can possibly give you like a weirder experience when it comes down to it. With something like the iPhone 14, I think it's a very solid camera for sure. I mean, this is easily, like I mentioned before, one of the best cameras of this year, and that is something that I always look forward to. Every time Apple makes a new phone, to see how it compares to the older ones is very interesting. This one, you're getting that ultra-wide camera. You're getting, video mode, cinematic mode now too, which is cool. You're getting action mode built in with that camera, which is really awesome. You're getting portrait mode, again, 4K 60 on the front and the back. All these Snapchat applications, TikTok, all those types of other applications are going to go ahead and utilize the full, width of that camera too, which is really nice. And overall, I love the iPhone 14 camera, and I do think it is better than the iPhone 5S. So how does it compare now with the iPhone 5S? I mean, I'll definitely tell you, obviously the 14 is going to be the better phone, but there's a lot more similarity than you would think. The camera UI that I just mentioned, the size of this phone and the feeling of the phone with the flat sides is very interesting as well. I'll say the iPhone 14 is a better phone for sure, but like I always say, you don't have to go from a 5S to a 14. You can also go from an iPhone 5S to like an iPhone 8 or an iPhone 10. You can go from a 5S to an iPhone 10 and get a massive difference as well. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.